Good evening, everyone. My clock says 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Now, welcome everyone to our council meeting for February the 24th. I want to welcome my council colleagues, also staff and residents who are watching us online who have joined us tonight. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us and for caring about your community. I want to acknowledge today is Pink Shirt Day. So although I've been told it looks white, I am donning my pink this evening for Pink Shirt Day. Lift each other up and standing up against bullying. And I know that all of council is also supporting that this evening. I have had regrets from the deputy mayor this evening, and but we have quorum and we'll continue. I do want to say that there is quite a significant windstorm happening outside my window right now. So if for some reason you lose me or I lose power, Councillor Nicol will take over the chair. And we'll start by saying that we are live streaming this meeting tonight. And we're asking that if you could make sure that your microphone is muted whenever you're not speaking. That will make it easy for everyone to hear the proceedings, and that public comments that are made during this meeting are both audio and video recorded and shall form part of the public record and will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And should you need more information about that, you can contact the clerk's office. So the first item on the agenda, as is always, is the open forum. And I do believe we have one person who has registered for open forum this evening. And so I will ask Jordana Massey if she could turn on her audio and video if she wishes. And you have up to 2 minutes, Jordana, to give us your statement.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Dolan and council members. I know time is tight, so I'll get right to it. I know there isn't a decision being made tonight, but our group is urging council to review the details of our report, which will be submitted to the town. For now, I'll just touch on the major ones. This is in regards to the Tromi development, of course. There's still no conformity to the provincial policy statement like Simcoe Protection Plan, Simcoe County Official Plan, and the Town of Innisfil Official Plan. A future urban designation does not exempt landowners or developers from having to conform to applicable policies. We've been going back and forth with this land swap. Another main issue is the stormwater pond. There's still no clear plan for the stormwater management system. The current environmental impact study on this file is outdated. There are several policies and guidelines that have been revised or created since this time. There are wetlands, watercourses, significant groundwater recharge areas, and aquifers on the site. The development does not show conformity to policy surrounding this, and this is from 2018. We're in 2021 now. There is direct fish habitat in the watercourse. There's significant wildlife habitat, rare plant species, and vegetable protection zones. There's also species at risk on the property. Stage 1 of the archaeological assessment of the lands determined that the study area exhibits a high potential for the identification and recovery of archaeological resources, and a phase 2 is required. The property is within a hazard lands boundary, meaning these lands are prone to extreme flooding and unstable soils, as many of our residents flood every single year already. This brings me to the last point, which is the ecological offsetting plan, which seems basically impossible to demonstrate how the issues above could ever be worked into an EOP strategy, which is why we haven't seen one yet. So if there isn't an EOP strategy, what is the cost that they are going to be paying the Conservation Authority, and will this be borne by the developer? While these outstanding issues remain unresolved, we see the beginnings of tree clearing before our very eyes. This is a complete lack for due process and accountability to the system and the policies that are put in place to ensure the safety and well-being of our community and ecological systems. This land is a part of a much larger functioning system. It's way bigger than just this parcel. Please keep that in mind moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Jordana, and for being with us here this evening. As you've already mentioned, there is an item on the agenda tonight, but it's simply an update and not a decision. But we appreciate your comments. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda, and we have some amendments to that since the agenda was originally posted, which are on the screen this evening. The first recommendation is that we include a delegation by Claire Malcolmson, the Executive Director of Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition. And is that all the amendments, Deputy Clerk, or was there more?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, that is the only one. Other items were added as part of the supplementary. This is the only one that came after the supplementary, which was provided to council and the public on Friday.
Okay, so then with that amendment, all in favor of allowing that on the floor this evening? I should say a mover and a seconder first, I apologize. So moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So next we'll move on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest on tonight's agenda? Seeing no hands, if one becomes apparent to you during the meeting, please reach out and let us know about that, and the clerk's office will identify it. So next is presentations and petitions. Our first presentation this evening, we're very excited to have Chair Goodfellow and members of the Innisfil Public Library Board, and we're going to have a review of A Year Like No Other. Welcome to all the members of the Public Library Board, and thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Dolan, councillors, staff, and community. I'm Monica Goodfellow, Chair of the Innisfil Public Library Board. Joining me this evening are fellow board members, Dr. Raj Grover, Sue Bennett, and Ann Smith. Thank you for having us here to share the library's year in review. Next slide, please.
So sorry to interrupt, if I could just have the permissions to share the slideshow. I've got the slideshow and it looks great, and just need permission to share that, so that can just give it to me. That would be great. Apologies, guys.
That's okay. So somebody can share that with Johnny, please. Technical issues with our Zoom.
If you could just let me know when I can proceed, that would be great. Oh, there we go.
Whenever you're ready, Chair.
Okay.
And we all got our own copies today delivered, so council members all got a copy.
Great. 2020 was an exceptional year, one like no other, as we contemplated a new decade and a year of community celebration, marking Innisfil's 200th year anniversary. There was much anticipation and excitement. Yet, just two and a half months into this auspicious year, we shuttered the doors of Innisfil Idea Lab and Library in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, Innisfil Idea Lab and Library has never been an organization to shy away from a challenge. We closed our doors, but found new ways to continue serving the community by shifting how we provided both our traditional and non-traditional services, including all aspects of library services, ensuring residents had access to warming and cooling centers, reimagining ways to connect with residents, and responding to completely new community needs. The library displayed the qualities of a resilient organization focused on supporting residents in whatever capacity was required. The library was immediately able to adapt services to provide materials, information, and programming in a variety of formats despite limited in-branch hours and curbside pickup only restrictions, all staffed behind the scenes by an agile and skilled group of employees. In times like these, it is more important than ever that residents have access to resources and the ability to remain connected and engaged with each other and the broader world. Next slide, please. With social isolation, disrupted work and family routines, and economic instability, it is understandable that our community is experiencing uncertainty and anxiety. In order to understand community priorities, the library acted as one of the partners in conducting a community needs assessment in order to begin rebuilding from a COVID-19, to strengthen community relationships, inspiring change from the bottom up, and establishing a more resilient Innisfil. By collaborating and sharing responsibility, the community and the municipality will adapt, rebound, and recover together. Collaboratively, the community identified 5 priority areas of community concern and potential action items to address each. 1, mental health. 2, access to information. 3, economic security. 4, employment. 5, community building with safety guidelines. The library recognized the need to support these community identified priorities and has adopted a community needs assessment lens in order to focus library services and projects that are of greatest value and importance at this time. We would like to share some of these initiatives with you tonight. Next slide, please. Our community needed fewer barriers to access services. We listened and the board approved a fine-free model in July, a historic change for the library and the community. Overdue fines present a barrier for residents who most need access to resources, especially in a post-COVID world when training and reskilling is critical to ensuring employment and economic security. Next slide, please. Fines in many ways conflict with the strategic intent of public libraries and interfere with our goals to ensure equitable access to information and services for all our residents. In addition, research has proven that fines don't result in faster return rates. They can damage their relationship and trust with our community and interfere with the lives and success of our most vulnerable. Next slide, please. The removal of overdue fines reflects library values to support literacy and lifelong learning for everyone, as well as the community needs assessment pillar to support economic security. As with everything we undertake, making this change was and will continue to be a team effort. It is only possible through the board and staff commitment to social justice and the decriminalization of poverty that we continue to assess our practices to meet the needs of residents. Next slide, please.
Our community needed more PPE for frontline workers. We took action and joined the movement of other libraries across North America to equip first responders and vulnerable community members with PPE by leveraging 3D printing. In March, we began 3D printing headbands and chin pieces to complete face shields for medical staff. Inksmith, an educational technology manufacturer based in Waterloo, collected these essential pieces, manufactured the final mask, and supplied them to medical institutions across Canada. Next slide, please. We also 3D printed ear guards for frontline workers that are required to wear face masks for prolonged periods of time, with many requests from local senior care home workers to frontline workers. The library created custom videos to highlight various ways to create PPE products at home, such as ear protectors and non-medical face masks with step-by-step, easy to follow directions. These instructional videos are still being viewed today, and we're thrilled to share that our video on how to make ear protectors using Cricut has been viewed over 10,000 times. Next slide, please. Our community needed to support our most vulnerable, our seniors. Within 2 weeks of closing our doors, we launched the Care Call service. Staff connected directly with older customers in order to check on their well-being, to help break social isolation, and to connect them to other social services in the community if needed. A number of resources were organized to assist staff with referrals for everything from grocery and pharmacy delivery services to the town's Essential Trips Assistance Program and mental health resources. Calls ranged from twice a week to monthly, with the majority requesting a weekly call. In one case, a staff member was able to refer a woman to a number of medical, mental health, and job-related resources. This resident was in a great deal of distress as she is the only caregiver for her elderly parents, a teenage daughter with a medical condition, and works in the healthcare field. Next slide, please. Library staff also launched Hack Lab at Home kits for seniors through funding from the New Horizons grant to keep them busy and engaged. These kits were designed to bring meaningful activities directly into the homes of seniors who are generally more vulnerable and continue to be isolated. The kits were free, and to reduce barriers to accessibility, kits could be adapted to accommodate the unique needs of individuals. Next slide, please. Our community needed to ensure that our youngest citizens still had opportunities for learning and growth, as early literacy development starts from birth. Virtual programs are offered for children of every age range. Story times are live streamed. Craft kits are available for different age ranges, and residents can now access a family book bag program. We've also successfully held modified versions of our key events, such as the short story contest, Silver Birch Battle of the Books, and the Summer Reading Club. Next slide, please. Similar to the Care Calls program, library staff are connecting one-on-one with families and caregivers of preschool-age children to offer much-needed support and a personal touch point to those who typically rely on the library to facilitate connections and provide important resources. Next slide, please. Our community needed opportunities to connect, be creative, and feel inspired. Virtual Tinker Shop programming was a successful outlet for people to explore their creative making skills, as well as connect with others in the community to design projects for their laser cutter, vinyl cutter, 3D printer, and embroidery machine. Staff continued to see a wide range of participants in these programs, especially seniors, as they look for new and safe ways to engage with the community during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Staff were not only focusing on skill building during Tinker Shops, but also helping people make social connections and develop relationships with others in the local community, thus improving their mental health and well-being. Online options were available to support those who recently learned a new skill and to prevent them from losing it. Through group get-togethers and one-on-one sessions, interest was maintained, and it created an appetite for future programming, growing an audience more likely to participate in programs and build on newly acquired digital literacy skills. Next slide, please.
Our community needed to keep reading, learning, and discovering more. We quickly made significant changes to how our library got materials into the hands of the community. Our main goal was to provide increased access to digital content, bringing the physical library experience to residents virtually. Next slide, please. A digital membership was created, enabling card registration remotely and ensuring residents could have full access to the hundreds of thousands of resources from ebooks, e-audiobooks, movies and magazines, music and learning tools available through the library's numerous online subscription services. Next slide, please. We revised and promoted our home library service, which delivers books, magazines, videos, and even craft kits to people who are unable to personally visit the library. This service is available to anyone who is confined to their home or care institution due to chronic or temporary disability, or those who are without transportation and unable to visit the library branches. Many participants are living in isolation, and this service has been a lifeline for them. Next slide, please. Our community needed the technology tools to enable them to navigate the ever-changing digital world. The pandemic amplified the need for the library to provide virtual services, such as fostering digital inclusion and facilitating connectivity. Virtual computer classes were offered on a variety of topics, such as video call apps, such as WhatsApp, Messenger, Zoom, and Google Meets, helping community members stay connected with family and friends and successfully participate in virtual meetings and classes. As the jobless rate soared, the library also pivoted to meet the community's employment support needs with opportunities to advance computer and digital literacy skills in a supportive learning environment. Class topics have heightened focus on employment, including classes on resume optimization, professional writing for the web, job searching, and an information session on Ontario's Second Career Grant Program. Next slide, please. In addition, the library offered a new database, BrainFuse's Job Now and Help Now online services. JobNow is an online service designed to support job seekers, featuring live online coaches who can assist in resume, cover letter preparation, and help community members prepare for job interviews. It also offers a resume lab, career resources, and some test preparation tools. HelpNow provides students with the opportunity to communicate with live online tutors anytime, anywhere, e-learning for all ages. It offers personalized homework help in core subjects from kindergarten to postgraduate studies. Next slide, please. Our community needed us to continue being innovative and leading edge, looking for new opportunities to better serve the community. We launched the Idea Shop in late 2020, enabling residents to purchase items created by our HackLab team and reinforcing the connection between the community and the library. In addition to giving the community a way of accessing locally made items, the Idea Shop is a way to invoke curiosity about our services and stimulate the residents' imagination to acquire the skills to create their own items. Next slide, please. The community needed to access accurate and reliable information. Our mandate is to serve residents' information needs, whether in person, over the phone, or online. During a crisis, however, accurate information becomes even more critical. Libraries are dedicated to providing reliable information, and the library is the best resource to dispel rumors and misinformation in a pandemic. Levels of communication between the library, the community, and media have increased in order to better share the wealth of information and programming opportunities being created by library staff. To connect residents with the information and resources they need most, the library website landing page was overhauled to ensure residents had quick and easy access to resources and new virtual offerings. Key free resources for our community members in the areas of mental health, employment, finances, newcomer services, and COVID-19 updates are now easily accessible, along with crisis hotline information for those requiring immediate assistance. Next slide, please.
Our community needed a sense of purpose and a way to give back to those who need it most during these challenging times. Our Crafting for Humanity project enabled participants to learn various skills in order to create items that are donated to community members in need. Supply kits were distributed from the library in advance of the virtual programs, and participants then learned how to crochet scarves and sew fabric face masks. Future crafting projects will include a community blanket, plastic bag water-resistant mats, chemo caps, and twiddle muffs for those living with Alzheimer's and dementia. Next slide, please. Youth were engaged in the Warm Wishes, Make Warm Hearts card creation initiative, in which cards were created by an art class at Nantyre Shores Secondary School to be sent to local seniors. Over 100 cards were created and sent to Lakeside Retirement, Matthews House Hospice, and to residents through Home Library Service and HackLab senior kits. This initiative provided a helpful way for youth to earn community service hours while fostering a sense of positivity and bolstering the mental health of those who may be feeling isolated. Next slide, please. As sustainability and food security continues to be a concern and focus during the pandemic, library staff in the Innisfil Seed Library sought to fulfill the community's needs to grow their own food at home. 1,165 seed packets were assembled and sent to community members. Participants are encouraged to harvest and donate seeds back to the Innisfil Seed Library at the end of the season to help replenish the seed stock for future years. Next slide, please. Our community needed a place to come together to collectively share their dreams for the future. In partnership with the town, we brought the Innisfil Hope Tree to the community. Adorned with bright white lights, this tree is unlike any other, a symbol of resilience, perseverance, and hope to focus the conversation on positivity within the community. A mailbox was placed near the Hope Tree, and residents were invited to drop off letters expressing their hopes for the future as an antidote to the unprecedented levels of stress and uncertainty that have prevailed during the pandemic. Creating opportunities for shared experience and moments of delight and surprise will be part of the solution in supporting residents during the pandemic and beyond. Next slide, please. Our community needs to be inspired about the future and how we will get there together. The COVID-19 pandemic makes it difficult to think about the future, while also making it crucial that we do so. This pandemic has amplified uncertainty around how we chart our path forward. Community organizations and governments will be faced with difficult decisions. The crisis has certainly amplified the need for our work while straining the resources required to be successful. Having said that, it will be important for the library and its partners to build on the positive responses coming from communities, proactively address challenges, and identify opportunities. We heard that residents wish to support each other, and we are seeing a real desire to rebuild community and connection out of this crisis. The library is one of the foundations for recovery and community building. Next slide, please. Innisfil Idea Lab and Library is more than just a repository for books. As a trusted space, free and open to everyone, the library plays a broad and valuable role in the lives of all residents. We will continue to build on the work started in 2020 to support the community, continue to act as a hub for discovery and experience, and engage and listen to our residents as we move forward to build a better Innisfil together. Thank you again, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, and members of council. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that very inspiring presentation. What can't you do, I guess, is what I want to ask. But absolutely thrilled and happy to have all of you here with us tonight, all of the board members, including the two board members who sit on council, Councillor Donna Orsatti and Councillor Kenneth Fowler. And just again, thank you for being able to pivot so quickly and realize what the needs were in the community and act upon them. So I'll ask council if there's any questions or comments from members of council. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Orsatti has been kind enough to let me speak first on this matter as we've discussed this. Before I even got elected to council, the library was a known hub in the town. It's beyond book and computers to begin with. We have the AV mixing studio, the world-renowned Hack Lab, town events, open houses, music festivals, art showcases. There's nothing that they can't do. So when COVID hit, you could collectively see, as Councillor Orsatti and I sat on the board, you could see the staff take a pause, think very briefly, roll up their sleeves, and direct their creative energies in a different manner. They, as you could see in the presentation, with the senior care calls, they fabricated PPE, online learning, the iLab, the Hack Lab with the gifts and whatnot, which we all have purchased from. They've also done, when they were closed the doors, they found a way to sanitize the product. So if you did not wish to read from an iPad, such as myself, they had the curbside pickup and drop off with a very stringent way of sanitizing the books and keeping everybody safe. They, during the summertime, I purchased a camp kit for my son that you could take home and then you could do on your own or with other children as you saw fit. And even now, during February, they're still promoting racial inclusivity, because last night I watched as they had guests and youth from Making Change come and speak about the Afro-Canadian culture and what challenges they face. And last but not least, my absolute favorite, it's our household, it's a gold star, is trivia nights. Once a month, they sit down, they choose a theme, and they go wild with it. Yeah, 77 questions. You get a bunch of people trying to get the answers as quick as possible. And it's a good bonding point for the family. So everything they've done, they haven't slowed down. They've just, a door closed. They went, designed, created, built, and opened 2 more. There's nothing that they could do that isn't impressive. So I am grateful. I am truly pleased to be a part of the library board because I see firsthand the incredible minds and people we have with it. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you so much, Councillor Fowler. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. I wanted to say that in any other year, this would be a very impressive year report. But in a year with pandemic restrictions, this is amazing. The accomplishments by the library are amazing. And as a counselor, I am proud of the board membership on the Innisfil Libraries and their individual contributions to the board. And I encourage other council members and members of the public to get to know their library, to go online and look at the programs they have, check out the Idea Store, and make a point to visit all the locations in person, Stroud, Cookstown, and Lakeshore, because you need to experience firsthand what makes Innisfil Libraries different and stand out from all the rest. I'm very proud to be a member of that and proud of all the work on behalf of all the staff at Innisfil Libraries, the CAO and acting CAO and all the board members. And thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions for the board? I'm just going to take a moment and say, yes, the library board is and the staff are fabulous, but also thank you to council for supporting the library. When I was first on council in 1994, the flagship library was the Stroud branch. There was a trailer in Alcona. The Cookstown branch was in the basement of the old town hall, which is smaller than the room I'm sitting in right now. And the CAO would come to council every budget time with this thing called the Fox Jones report and say, we fund libraries less than any other municipality, the per capita funding, and pushed and pushed and pushed. And we've come a long way in that time. So, and that comes with council support and taxpayers' dollars. But I think those taxpayer dollars are very, very well spent. So thank you to all of the board members who are here tonight. And with that, I will ask for a recommendation that the presentation from the library board be received. And that would be moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks everyone, and you're welcome to stay on with us the rest of the evening if you'd like, or log off whenever you like. So thank you again for being here with us. Next, there was only the one presentation tonight. Under delegations, we have one, and that is from Claire Malcolmson, the Executive Director of the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition. Welcome, Ms. Malcolmson, and begin whenever you like.
Okay, thank you very much. I love the Innisfil Library so much. That was a really great presentation. Amazing. So, like one of the very best things about Innisfil. So yes, I'm the Executive Director of the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition. I am back. Thank you so much for having me. As you know, the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan review is on now until March 3rd. So this is a busy week, doing a bunch of delegations and looking at a bunch of staff reports. And so I wanted to just start off by thanking staff for meeting with me and reviewing our recommendations, and then allowing me to have a conversation with them about theirs. So next slide, please. I'm going to tell you a bit about the review, our priorities and our asks, and a few suggestions for the staff report. Those will be really coming right from the staff report, which is a separate document that you've received. And I have it with me and I'll speak to it, but it's not in the slides. Next slide, please. So the Lake Simcoe watershed is gigantic, as you know, and altogether, pulls in $420 million a year in sustainable tourism and recreation. I know there are many ice hut operators in Innisfil, for example, and lots of tourism for cottages. All of this relies on clean water and healthy environment. So that's what I'm here to continue reminding all the councils around the lake about. Next slide, please. So in 2005, the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition started advocating for better protection for Lake Simcoe when shorelines were being developed, and we thought that that was crazy. And so here we have the best watershed-based legislation in Canada. We should be extremely proud. And this list is a short list of some of the highlights of what the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan does above and beyond provincial policy. Galen Pierce, one of your planners, said it's the strongest tool that we have for a number of features that need to be protected in the environment. One of the key things is natural heritage and hydrologic feature setbacks, septic inspections, and improved stormwater management guidelines. Also protection for smaller wetlands. You know, once municipalities have caught up with that through their mapping and planning. And all of these things really help in a climate change environment, which is what we have now, where we have a projection to have precipitation increase 10% over the next 40 years in the Lake Simcoe watershed. So this is something we cannot deny and we have to plan for. Next slide, please. So the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan review is on the next slide. It was supposed to happen in 2019. Here we are, the eve of Christmas holidays. End of 2020 it began. So it's a really short consultation period. The province has done a survey, one town hall, one science forum. You will be consulted, obviously, Conservation Authority, the coordinating committee, the science committee, and the members of the public and affected First Nations and Métis. So we've been working for a couple of years to educate the public about this and councils and try to get the province to do the right thing to protect Lake Simcoe. We've produced final recommendations for improvements to the plan. They've now been supported by 28 groups, and we're continuing to get signatures. Next slide, please. So our top priorities are here. The top two have not changed for a couple of years. So improve water quality by reducing phosphorus loads to 44 tons a year as soon as possible from agriculture and urban areas, from aggregate and construction sites. The Lake Simcoe Plan says this should be achieved by 2045. That is certainly our expectation, if not sooner. Support a healthy environment around the lake and reduce flooding impacts by protecting 40% of the watershed's the watershed's forests and wetlands. There is a target in the Lake Simcoe Plan to achieve a 40% high quality natural cover in the watershed. We now have 28%. So we have a ways to go and much more to protect. That needs to be strengthened in the plan for sure. 3, enable the Conservation Authority and First Nations to participate meaningfully in the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. Governance, this is not above and beyond what's written in the plan right now. It's just really, let's implement the plan and have those partners be involved and share their skills to the fullest extent possible. Number 4, respect the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan by stopping the use of MZOs in the watershed. Lake Simcoe Protection Act says the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan will not apply. Really, my reading is unless it is stated. So I really appreciate that that's happening later on the agenda tonight, just to make sure you dot the I's, cross the T's, right? 5, increase public engagement and restoration and invasive species control. Get the public and businesses involved. There's been very little opportunity for business to get involved here, unlike in the Oak Ridges Moraine and the Greenbelt Plan, which both have foundations and both have a lot of creative ways to generate more energy around the plan than what we have at Lake Simcoe. And finally, incorporate the climate change adaptation strategy policies. Basically, they are the same as reduce phosphorus loads and support the protection of green space. They're all one and the same. Absolutely need to do a better job of that in order to guard against the impacts of climate change. I have children, you might hear them. They're small, they're loud. Next slide, please. Try to stay focused. A tiny shared desk. Okay, so what is the province doing? This is not my headline, by the way. So in the summer, the province released a 10-year report on the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. It was supposed to be Jeff Urich, Minister of the Environment, but Andrea Khanjin did it. Minister Urich is still MIA on Lake Simcoe. The report itself did not meet our expectations, and I don't think it actually satisfied the requirements of the Lake Simcoe Protection Act either. 5 years ago, the province wrote a science report and then also a politics report written by the minister. They're different. And so this was one report. It's not scientific enough. End of the day, the science forum and the town hall all presented the same information, not at all to disparage any of the scientists or the data that's being collected. But what we did not see was a comparison of where we started and where we've ended up, and any evaluation of whether the policies are really working. And the province put forward no proposal for changing the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So ultimately, our campaign is really about protecting the plan and focusing on implementing it. We do not want the province to weaken it in any way. And that is really sort of the subject of this delegation. Next slide, please. Phosphorus loads remain worryingly high. We have about a 90 ton per year load. That is over a 10-year average. That's the latest 10-year average. That's more than double the target. So I think whatever remediation work is being done, which is great, is really just keeping pace with the impacts of growth. So we're not doing enough, and or growth is having a bigger impact. And we know for sure climate change is driving phosphorus loads. The flow is the yellow line, and it really is driving the phosphorus loads around the lake. So we ignore climate change at our peril. Next slide, please. The other priority for us is protecting green space in the Lake Simcoe watershed. So we looked at how well policy protects those land features. The dark green is provincially significant wetlands and significant forests. Those are really no-touch zones unless you use an MZO. But that's not how the policy is supposed to work in Ontario. So that is not 40%. We have to do better at coming up with a natural heritage system that is going to be protected for the long term. The next slide, please, just zooms in on Innisfil. And I just want to point out that there are links in this presentation to 2 reports. One is the Innisfil Community Mapping Report and Traditional Ecological Knowledge Report written with some First Nations partners. All really good strategies in there for helping municipalities and the region and Simcoe County move towards the 40% high quality natural cover target. Next slide. So in Innisfil, we did some analysis with some cartographers for the University of Guelph with the support of the Greenbelt Foundation, looking at how natural heritage is protected and how it could be. So here we're comparing the Innisfil Creek subwatershed to the Lake Simcoe watershed as a whole. So you'll see in Innisfil, this is not about level of protection. This is about the attribute itself and how it is distributed. So wetlands comprise about 10% of the Innisfil subwatershed, and across the entire watershed, it's 18%. Woodlands in Innisfil are around 28%, and across the watershed, it's 34%. And in the area of best policy protection in Innisfil, we have 12%, and across the watershed, we have 21%. Some of the explanation for 21% across the watershed is the Oak Ridges Marine Plan to the south, which does have much stronger policy protection for natural heritage features. So this is just to show you sort of where Innisfil sits in comparison to the entire watershed compared to the targets that are recommended. So I would really like to see, happy to see Innisfil is initiating a process looking at a tree bylaw and greater focus on forest cover issues. So I'll be happy to stay engaged with that with you. Next slide, please. So the Innisfil staff report, again, I really appreciate being able to speak to staff about it. So recognizing that Innisfil needs to work harder to protect an adequate amount of green space and to improve water quality, and that Innisfil is now through the Orbit MZO advancing development at a pace and scale unparalleled in the watershed, it is critical, in my opinion, that comments to the province not suggest that accommodating growth is the most important thing. The lake is a shared resource, and the province could interpret vague comments that suggest limiting the application of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan as a request to weaken the development policies of the plan. And I think that is unhelpful for the lake. So I've talked to staff. I don't know if they've made changes or are going to make changes, but at this point, I'm just going to turn to the document that I've submitted, that I'm just going to highlight a couple of components of the staff report that I thought could be clarified. So this is on page 2 of what I submitted. So phosphorus targets for Lake Simcoe may not be sufficiently in step with other recently updated provincial policies. I understand that there is a huge problem with accommodating the new growth plan and also achieving the targets of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. I am urging staff here with council support if needed to just be clear that I think it would be better if it were stated that the appropriate approach should be to determine what development can occur with which supportive low impact development and best management practices and or engineered solutions while reducing phosphorus loads. The way it's written, it could suggest that lake targets have to accommodate the growth plan. And of course, that's not how ecology works. It won't work for the lake. I understand it's a bit of a square peg round hole problem that we have with the province and growth and Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, but it needs to be clear that the health of the lake is not really flexible. The second point that I'm making here is that the staff comment that the application of sub-regional amendments to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan should be considered to better achieve provincial planning goals. My comment is, if we read this correctly, this approach assumes that some sub-watersheds would sacrifice growth potential in order to protect the environment. And this appears to be an appeal to accommodate massive growth in Innisfil while suggesting that other municipalities not grow. I don't know if that was really the intention, but I don't think that that is a good characterization of what other municipalities have offered around the watershed. And further, it doesn't work that way. As you know, having shaded forested stream banks in Oro-Medonte does nothing for beach conditions in Innisfil, right? So if you want good water quality at Innisfil Beach, there needs to be a better attempt in Innisfil to reduce contaminants. So I think if this is what you're asking for, a sub-regional approach, that should start with a call to develop sub-watershed forest wetland cover targets, which are now not in the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan and really should be. And I would recommend that Innisfil commit to achieving the natural heritage and water quality targets of the Lake Simcoe Plan locally, and then accommodate growth accordingly. I think I'm probably at my time limit. Maybe someone can give me an indication. No.
Yeah, I think you're getting close. If you could wind up, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to pick my last point to make. The last point I'll make here is about the removal of vegetation 30 days prior to construction or grading. So I think it just needs this comment. It needs some more detail. We know that sediment from construction is a major problem. I mean, if you lived in Innisfil 5 to 10 years ago, it was just a dust bowl. There was a lot of sediment from development in Alcona. I heard resident complaints a lot about the plumes near Lefroy from the development on the edge of Lefroy. So sediment is not being controlled as well as it needs to be, and it is a major pollutant for Lake Simcoe. So rather than just, suggesting that the vegetation removal condition is problematic, I think that some more specificity would really help. This has been studied by the science community, and there are recommendations about how to manage dirt on site during a construction process. And what they found is that the bigger the site, the longer the period of time, the bigger the dust pollution. And it sounds really obvious, but this is something that has to be managed, and it's not going to be in the way that all the developers want. This is one of the things about living beside a lake, is that we have to be really careful with it, or it won't be very nice to swim in. So I think I'm at the end of my time. Thank you very much for hearing me. And also I would really just welcome any questions you might have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malcolmson. Much appreciated. Questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Claire, for that great presentation, and thanks very much for all the support you give to our community around making sure that we're trying to do the right thing. I do have one question from your comments. It seems to be something missing, and it seems to really bug me. Is that I don't see anything about salt in your report, and I they say by 2050 Lake Simcoe will be a saltwater body, but yet I don't see anything here that suggests that that's a threat to Lake Simcoe. And I think personally, I think it's just as much of a threat as phosphorus is. So I'm just kind of curious to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a major threat, and perhaps it's an oversight. I'm not advocating for putting more salt in the lake at all. I recognize that it's a big problem. It's just not in the plan as it exists today. I imagine that is one of the things that could be added, and it's certainly being looked at from the science community. So I guess if there's a reason why it's not in there is I think that there are a number of initiatives afoot. It's not just going to happen in the Lake Simcoe watershed. There's a change to the Ontario Water Resources Act, I think, that would be required for this. And there's also at the moment a lot of training of salt applicators happening, and the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority has done a really good job of managing that project and trying to move the needle. So my understanding is that there are other processes underway that would allow this, that they can't just plunk it into the Lake Simcoe framework and have it be effective. But point taken. I think it's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. That was my question as well, because as my understanding is when the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan or when the Lake Simcoe Protection Act came into being, we didn't have the sodium chloride issues that we have today, or we didn't know about them. So, and it's from my understanding, it is overtaken as the #1 issue for Lake Simcoe. And I know that there's a freshwater table started, and I think anything we can do to strengthen that would be extremely important. Other questions or comments? I had one, if I could, Ms. Malcolmson, and it's just a matter of making sure that there's no confusion. So on your one chart, you called it Innisfil Creeks. And Innisfil Creek subwatershed actually is a subwatershed that flows into the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. And so just wondering if you could use different nomenclature so people wouldn't, because when I see Innisfil Creeks, I think of the Innisfil Creek subwatershed, as opposed to the subwatersheds in Innisfil that flow into Lake Simcoe.
That's what it's called in the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, named all the subwatersheds within the Lake Simcoe watershed, and that's the name of the one that I showed you there. So maybe they have the same name in both. I don't know, but it's not like other subwatersheds which all drain into one river. It is, a set of creeks that flow into the lake. And
absolutely, I totally understand that the way that the Lake Simcoe watershed works in Innisfil, but I'm thinking it's maybe some clarification we could make in our staff report to them, so that we don't confuse it with the Innisfil subwatershed in Nottawasaga. But thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question on wetlands. What do you suggest is the best way to protect wetlands when you have when you have phosphorus offsetting programs and you have various ecological offsetting programs as well? How do you go about protecting these when a developer can buy their way out of protecting those? And especially in Innisfil, we have a lot of very, very wet areas, which should stay wet and not be developed. So what do you suggest is the best way to protect these areas, especially when a lot of them are unevaluated, as we found out during that session we did at the Innisfil Beach Library. So just out of curiosity, just an opinion there.
Very good question, Councillor Waters. Thank you. And I think the Conservation Authority would have a very good answer to this as well. So for us, I think step number one is the municipality and the county really working on evaluating more of the wetlands. There's not a lot that can be done without that. So that's a really important piece. There's been a lot of research done into the effectiveness of these offsets for wetlands, and they're not effective. Nothing is as good as the original wetland. And putting a wetland in another place does not solve the local problem, or it could really potentially mess up the hydrology. I mean, that of the place where the wetland is being lost. So, I mean, what I'm hearing about Turomi actually does concern me from that point of view. So my understanding is that until a development application is advanced, it is not always possible to get onto a piece of property and evaluate that wetland. So certainly at the time when a development application is brought to the town and there's a wetland or an unevaluated wetland, I would just encourage you to work with the Conservation Authority and do as much upfront with the developer as possible. My understanding is that that is working quite well. Avoiding those natural hazards and figuring out what the developer can get, maybe additional units, rather than getting rid of the wetland and trying to build something else somewhere else. I mean, I know that in some cases it is helpful to get money to do something big where you really need it, but the science and the evidence is really that removing wetlands and putting them somewhere else is not helpful for the environment.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Cash for wetland does not make any sense to me. A wetland is needed where it's needed. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you. I noticed one of the comments you didn't mention tonight was funding for heritage trusts. And I think that is, I don't know if you could ever put enough money in them. One of the biggest pet peeves I have is somebody who calls herself an environmentalist who sells their land to a developer and then complains that there's development happening on that land. And it's just, I have to bite my tongue. But it is an issue, and it's something that, at least right now we're going to have to deal with, but it's something that does happen here quite frequently, and maybe designating or making that land invaluable is the thing to do before it's sold to a developer. Might be a way out. But any other comments or questions? Councillor Rossetti.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank you, Ms. Malcolmson, for your presentation and the letter and the 15-page report on the recommendations for policy improvements. For those of us on council who don't have the luxury of the background, that we're very grateful that Councillor Waters has, because, bringing forward and raising the questions that sometimes we don't think of. But your presentations and these types of reports give us more information to think about when we're looking at planning applications and looking at where we see those, wetlands, and that it triggers us to investigate a little more, ask more questions. So I want to thank you for bringing that awareness to council and to myself especially. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you, Ms. Malcolmson, for being here. We do appreciate your time very much and love hearing the kids in the background. That's one of the benefits of these virtual meetings. So thanks again. And we have a recommendation that the update on 10-year Lake Simcoe Protection Plan review be received. And that's moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you once again. Next is item 7, County Council, Municipal Associations. Any comments tonight from any committee members? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. A bit hesitant to discuss this, but I thought I'd bring it to Council's attention. The agenda for the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority on Friday includes a proposed 60-month permit for the South Innisfil Creek Drain. Based on the sheer magnitude of that project, and rather than having staff having to resubmit for permits after 24 months, it's been recommended to be a 60-month permit applied to that. I don't plan to pull that item during NVCA Council, and at this point, nobody else has either too. So looking forward to make sure that this gets through and that we get some great traction and progress on the South Innisfil Creek Drain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other committees of council? So I'll call then on Mr. Keogh to do the Emergency Operations Center update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to everyone. A friendly reminder that this information is from the EOC meeting from last week. We do try to update this as much as possible, but it may be dated in some instances. So the SMDHU did advise us and continue to urge our community to remain vigilant as a third wave could be on its way, particularly due to the COVID-19 variants. They advise that we can continue to work towards reintroducing normal to the community with some wellness and leisure activities, but we should still, all of us, only be leaving for home for essential reasons. The vaccine program is going quite well, with 30,000 people in our district having been vaccinated so far, and a target of 200,000 people per month once the program is fully implemented. Rollout is for long-term care homes, healthcare, and first responders first, before rollout to other vulnerable populations. Vaccine sites are to be located throughout Simcoe County, including in Barrie and Innisfil, with details about locations and opening dates and times to be announced shortly by the SMDHU. The provincial Stay Home Ontario campaign recently ended, with the stay-at-home order, of course, being lifted. We had a program in support of that on Instagram. That was a big success. We had some local youth that were interviewed on CBC Radio that talked about how they sincerely appreciate being rewarded for good behavior rather than being shamed for misbehavior. Some town facilities have reopened now, including the IRC ice rinks, and the town is working closely with our local groups, hockey leagues, just to get them back up and running again. Winter programs are status quo, with a really great uptake on the free virtual program. I wanted to get you numbers on this, but I know that in a good way, the free virtual programs has been just like a smashing success with lots of new registrations. Town Hall remains closed, but we continue to offer customer service online and over the phone. That said, if a resident requires assistance, when all those other options don't work, we will book an in-person appointment. That appointment just needs to be booked with our customer service team. With this being tax season, of course, and another due date tomorrow, we wanted to make sure that we could provide lots of great options for customer service support. In our last EOC update, you may recall we did mention the enforcement blitz, and we were talking about our local statistics and hoping to have that for you. We continue to wait for our partners at the Ministry of Labor for that. We can say that for those businesses that had a COVID-related issue, and relatively speaking, there are a few, our bylaw CDSB team has been able to follow up and resolve those issues with 60% of those outstanding cases, and work continues, of course, to get that up to 100. Our DLab and library has resumed browse and go service, we're all aware, but continues to urge patrons to use the curbside service. The 2020 resident parking pass still remains good, so hang on to that until further notice. We have sent a few reminders out about that. Our operations, CDSB, and other teams continue to look at parking passes and options for 2021 and beyond. If for whatever reason the resident needs a pass, maybe they're new to Innisfil, the 2020 pass can be picked up at our library branches through the curbside service. And with the milder temperatures coming, this may be the last opportunity for ice fishing. So just while I have got the floor here, just a friendly reminder to our ice fishing friends and operators to please continue to respect physical distancing and wear a mask. And thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our EOC communications lead? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Keogh. I had just one announcement from the Police Services Board meeting that was held on Monday night. As you all know, Inspector Van Dyke was the successful candidate for to fill the deputy mayor position. So he is now Deputy Chief Van Dyke. So last night Monday night, we were happy to congratulate Cheryl Sutton, who is the new inspector to fill his position. Cheryl's been started with Innisfil Police Service in 1995. I believe she is the first female inspector, but I didn't confirm that, but it's the first one certainly I can remember. And she was the first female to be on the emergency response unit as well. And really glad to welcome Cheryl to that position. The only other comment from the Police Services Board meeting is we have a custom-made program called Be the Real You, and it's delivered to all grade 5 students by our special community officers. It deals with things like substance abuse, bullying, and internet safety. And we've always operated that service, and our new chair, Chair Garapi from Innisfil, said, you know, we should look at getting a sponsor for that. So he was successful in getting Bradley Homes to sponsor that program for us. So thank you very much to Bradley Homes of Innisfil for being the sponsor of that really wonderful program that's delivered to every grade 5 student in Bradford and Innisfil. So seeing no other hands, then that's the end of the reports. So we'll go to our consent list and go through the list of reports that are on here. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free. If not, if you want to pull it and make any amendments or have a debate on it, we'll pull it and take it into committee of the whole. If it's not pulled, then we will ratify it at the end of tonight's meeting. So the first item is A1, the adoption of the special council meeting minutes for February 10th. A2, the council meeting minutes for February the 10th. B1, the Innisfil Municipal Heritage Committee report, January 7th. B2, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee, dated February the 9th. C1, the Shared Services Exploration and Modernization Grant Funding Intake 2. I did just have a question on that item, if I might. Scrolling, sorry. I wanted to know if I could, was there a reporting requirement on what we spent the funds on? The unconditional funds that we got in March of 2018, was there any reporting requirements on those funds? Mr. Milanish, and that might be before your time.
Right, through your worship, no, there was no formal requirements other than just a high level idea how we were going to spend. That was on the unconditional modernization grant portion.
Then the only other question I had was quite often we hear that we're going to be submitting an application for one type of funding or another, or one type of grant or another. And sometimes we don't get afterwards we don't find out whether or not we're successful. In this one, we found out that in phase 1, in this report, we found out we applied and were unsuccessful. But I just wondered if there was a way that whenever we do apply for any type of grant, that sometime or another that comes back to council saying either, yes, we were successful or no, we weren't. So we kind of get closure on that item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good suggestion. As we get more details on certain funding that we don't get, sometimes we're not even provided the opportunity as to the reasons why we haven't received the funding, as was in the intake 1 for the modernization grant. So, but noted, yes, we will share any status of future application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next was C2, the alcohol risk management policy update. Councillor Fowler.
If I may, Your Worship, I just have a quick question regarding item C2. It's more of a legal question. On page 2, goal number 4 is to protect the town, its staff, community organizations, volunteers, and participants from contributing to a situation which could result in harm and/or liability. And policy number 3, to ensure that events where alcohol use is permitted are safe, properly supervised, and operated. The legalese is what I'm kind of curious about, because if you have 1,000 people attend an event, there may be that one particular person who imbibes a little more than is expected or required. I'm wondering, is it now, at what point do the staff step back legally and say that, you know, we can't be held accountable because we can, like, for example, you can ask a man who's had too much for his keys and get him an Uber because, you know, Innisfil's awesome that way. But at the same time, you know, if he gets belligerent and out of control and then proceeds to get to his vehicle, at what point, what do we do then? What's the policy? How do we keep our staff safe in these situations? And at what point are the police going to be involved? Are they going to be there at every event that there's alcohol? Or it's a gray area. I just need to know that if we have something like this in place, what do we do?
Thank you. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Fowler. Excellent questions, Councillor. I'm pleased to say that we have really specific SOPs or standard operating procedures related to alcohol events, particularly if we're involved whatsoever in terms of the management of that event. There are different procedures, though, if it's an event that someone has simply rented out our space for versus an event that we might be hosting, for example, a staff appreciation event or something to that effect. So there's different procedures that apply for different events. And we do work closely with the police, actually, as well as potentially security, depending on the event, to make sure that people are SmartServe trained, they understand when they are to intervene, like you've suggested, and when we have a responsibility to make sure that someone's taken care of and that they don't continue to consume alcohol. So happy to provide maybe by email to council if that would be helpful, the specifics, but there's a couple of different procedures, standard operating procedures that apply in this case.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And when we have like very large scale events where your chances are greater to have something like that to get out of control, normally the event organizers are required to have on-duty police officers. Oh, there's Ms. Botham. Did you have something to add, Ms. Botham? And then I'll go to Councillor Sadi.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just to continue on your thought process. So the bigger scale events would have to go through an event process form. So the event guidelines also outlined stipulations on what their requirements are when they do serve alcohol. So there are other guidelines on top of this risk policy that would come into play on larger scale events that would look after, like Mayor Dolan said, whether they need police or whether they need just security, depending on the type of event.
Follow up if I may. Is that mitigated by the province or the town? So if there's provincial regulations, then we're obligated to follow them as well. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, through the alcohol policy, there are the alcohol gaming commissions and the liquor license regulations that we do have to follow. And that's the majority of this policy that you see in front of you. The town also has a special event policy that we have event organizers fill out a form and follow specific town guidelines relating to special events.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you very much. I was hoping that this was going to be pulled once I saw that there was other questions. I have two quick questions. So I apologize that this has not been a pulled item. If I have permission to ask those, I don't assume that they'll be lengthy response. Thank you very much. In the document, Ms. Botham, it refers to, and I thought that this would really be of importance for any members of the public that are watching this, as well as organizing groups. I have a Smart Serve certification. I was not aware that in October of 2019, Smart Serve updated its curriculum to include the recreational cannabis and cannabis intoxication in the Smart Serve certification. Does that, when groups are having these events then at the town, do they need to have recertification, proof of recertification, updated ones to include that? Is my one question.
Yeah, my understanding is no, and that was the reason we flagged anybody that might have had a Smart Serve certification from the past. At this point, my understanding is there is not a requirement for them to requalify. And then also, you know, we have our policies around cannabis use and smoking within the town. So obviously that would flag our smoking bylaw policy anyways. So we did put it in here as a flag so that, you know, any of our new groups that are using the policy and have been certified in the past are aware of it, because many people haven't been aware of it. You're correct.
Yeah. Good point. It certainly made me aware, made me realize that if I want to do that, I would want to get recertified. My final question was, this was a great report. I think it's timely. And is this being shared with, I think, of the two main groups in the town of Innisfil, the Rotary Club and the Innisfil Events Corporation, ICE Corp? Thank you. And that's it.
Yes, yes. So I did not share with this with them prior to coming to council, only because everything that's in here, they've been following those regulations anyways, but we will make sure that everybody's aware of the new copy. It just gives them a cleaner one booklet of everything that the regulations in one location compared to our old outdated policy, for sure.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the rest of the council for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Sadi. I'm smiling because I emailed that very question to Ms. Botham this afternoon. I had one question, if I could, and that was in under the section where it talks about providing food and non-alcoholic beverages. It says that food must be provided, and that doesn't, you know, chips and things don't count. But does it have to be free, or can they charge for food?
No, my understanding they could charge. We just, in the past, the process has been, you know, throw a bag of chips out or popcorn or something like that. So the regulation is hoping that people moving forward would have more of a substantial food, depending on the function, obviously. If it's a special event, it would fall under a different practice. But, you know, your buck and does, those types of things that are for a few hours, were, you know, obviously setting our precedent that we don't want them just putting out popcorn, you know, maybe it's sandwiches or something to that effect.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, then the next item is a C3, the delegated authority for amendments to policies. Seeing none, D1 is the items that were added. So the update on the 10-year Lake Simcoe Protection Plan review. D2, the Innisfil Mobility Orbit proposed ministerial zoning order clarification to make sure that the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan is included. D3, Taroni application status update. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not pulling the item. However, I just wanted to clarify why it was on the agenda tonight for those watching. Recently on the property on the southeast corner of 25th and Mapleview, there was some tree clearing, some cutting, and I received a great deal of number of emails and phone calls regarding the matter, what was happening, what was going on. So once we sorted out, I made a few phone calls to town, and town staff has been very, very helpful in working with me with this. I arranged a Zoom meeting between planning, bylaw, Councillor Waters, myself, where we sat and discussed the situation, what was going on, and what we were doing moving forward. Just so everyone is on the same page, in the report, basically it states that what was done cannot be done again, that there is to be no heavy machinery on the property from this point forward. The Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority is now aware and involved. The county is aware and involved. Planning is aware and involved. Bylaw has stepped up, and now they're going to be, watching very closely. So I want to thank everybody who's taken the situation that has not progressed, for lack of a better term, in well over a year, and taken the time to give an update so that we can all breathe a sigh of relief and know that when the time comes, everyone who wishes to be involved in this, what they can do is get involved in Innisfil.ca. If they register, the moment a planning session comes up regarding the property, they will be informed. We want everybody on the same page. So by doing so, any information that has already been put into play regarding the property can be accessed, can be inspected, and anything moving forward they will be informed of. The idea is just to have everybody with the singular message moving out at the same time, at the same pace, and we have multiple agencies now involved. So if there's something that comes up, everybody will know. So I want to say thank you to the town staff, especially bylaw and planning, for really stepping up to the plate and helping me with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is item E, which is bylaws, and a bylaw to provide reduced load periods for the 6th line. Next is F, items for correspondence. The first one is the correspondence from Clearview Township. I just wanted to speak to this very quickly to let everybody know that the County Council did endorse this. This act is 30 years old. It talks about floppy disks, so it's time that it got updated. But also there has been cases within Simcoe County where there's been what I would call abuse of the system. One municipality received 790 FOI requests from one individual over 10 years. So that's 79 a year. That's 1.5 a week. That's a full-time job for somebody. And the compensation is called reasonable cost recovery. It's not full cost recovery. So the cost of somebody doing all this work and digging up all these old records is on the taxpayer. So I think it's time that we supported this and got this act updated. So that's why it's on here tonight. Next we go to correspondence. So we have 4 pieces of correspondence. Did anyone have any items they wanted to pull from those items? Well, I think this is a first, at least a first for 2021. We had no items pulled this evening, so we'll go to, we don't have to go to a consentless recommendation. So now we'll just go to the recommendation that all the recommendations contained are contained therein are adopted as resolutions of council. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Payne and Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? That is carried. We don't need to resolve into committee then. This is just so odd. Councillor Orsatti.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. I just felt I needed to make a comment because sometimes in an evening like this where it's all gone by and we haven't pulled items, that it's important for residents to know that councillors question staff ahead of time before council meetings on a lot of these items for understanding, clarification, and so we feel that many times it's not important to bring those back because we felt comfortable with the report, with all the responses and questions we've had. So we just don't let them slide. We do our inquiries and we work hard. And I just thought it was important for everyone to know that.
Thank you, Councillor. This makes up for all the nights we're here till 11:30. All right, so any notices of motion? We've had none received, so there's no notices of motion. Announcements. Any announcements? Councillor Orsatti.
Sorry, I don't have an announcement about my ward right at the moment because, with the pandemic, I just wanted to give an update on the Stand Against Bullying and Pink Shirt Day, which has started. There is actually an international day that's held in April. But today is the day when children start wearing these pink shirts to go to schools, to bring awareness to bullying. And the statistics state that 1 in 5 children experience bullying as young as in kindergarten and going right through to high school, and especially in their teens. But it doesn't stop there. It also happens in families, and it happens to the most vulnerable with seniors, a lot of bullying. And we can all appreciate throughout the pandemic that it happens on social media. So I think it's about bringing awareness. It's not one day of the year that we need to bring awareness. We in council tried to pull whatever we could today in wearing whatever we could in pink or red to show our support. And maybe by International Day, we'll all have some pink t-shirts to show. But I just thought I wanted to recognize the importance of that as a mother, as a grandmother, and for our community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Eisses.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a shout out. Yesterday was Canada Agriculture Day, and it was a day set aside to recognize all the hard work that's done in the agriculture and food industry in this country. This comes after the February 9th Food Freedom Day, which is a day that is recognized for the average family has earned enough in the year to pay for a year's worth of their food. If we contrast that to Tax Freedom Day, that comes way down the line somewhere in August. So I just like to bring those things forward just to say thank you to all those involved in the food and agriculture industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Farmers Feed Cities. Any other announcements? I just had one, if I could. Our South Simcoe Theatre, our live theatre here in Innisfil, has had the curtains closed throughout the whole pandemic, but they came out fighting, and they've started what they call their foreplay. So they have local playwrights write these scripts, and then they act them out, usually with very minimal costume or sets. And so they're doing those online, and their very first one was Friday night. And so I tuned in. I figured out how to get YouTube on my TV versus my iPad, and it was wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it. And well done. And there's going to be 3 more, one in March, one in April, and one in May. So I encourage all of you to, it's free, just log in. And if you want to watch the one, I think it was a spiff on kind of an Andy Mayberry thing. I think it was something about the pride of Hepfield or something. I might have got the name wrong, but it was like a bit of a police in a small town plot, but it was really very good. So I encourage you to log on to the South Simcoe Theatre YouTube channel and watch. So hearing no other announcements, then we have our confirming bylaw, and that's moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. And our adjournment. Oh, I should, just before we adjourn, if I could, Mr. Rayner, anything for the good of the corporation, any announcements or anything in your second last meeting?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, just continue to be impressed with the team that continues to navigate the pandemic. And our thoughts go to SMDHU and the health unit as they continue to manage and monitor the potential spread of the variant. We know that council continues to champion, best practices, and we really appreciate your work there. It's very difficult to continue to be diligent, but we really appreciate you doing that. I know there is a great temptation to rush back out into the community as you all are so active, but just really appreciate your continued diligence as we support the health unit. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. So now I will ask for a motion to adjourn, and that would be Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, staff, for being here. And your gift tonight is being adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Wow.
So
that's a first.
Have an
absolute first.
Have a nice evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.